Somebody check out there and make sure there's nobody trying to get in. We want to make sure everybody gets in. Want to thank everybody who turned out tonight. We have a roll call?
Yes. Belsley.
Here.
Dobb.
Here.
Hare.
Here.
Herman.
Here.
Kaufman.
Here.
Newhouse.
Here.
You have a quorum.
We stand and pledge the flag.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, here's the situation. Is this thing turned on?
No, you didn't talk up, Ron.
How about now? Now? Can you hear me now?
a little bit closer, Ron. Move the mic.
Louder? How about now? You think I'm going to say something important, you know. How about now? Can you hear me now? Anybody in the back can't hear me? I saw one hand go up. The situation is this. Many of Morton's most influential people and influential organizations would like to have a new plaza. Many others don't want a plaza, or they want something not as expensive as what was originally described. And so we're here today, and here's essentially our objective. The board and I were elected to represent the entire community. And we want to hear all sides of the issue and try to construct a compromise that will not disenfranchise any large part of the community. The board's going to provide the leadership for which you elected us. And I don't expect there to be a vote tonight. We're just here to collect information tonight. Not a lot of debate. We're going to give you the information we have. We'd like to get information from all sides tonight. We need time to discuss the information that we get tonight, and so as I said, we're not going to vote. The rules are that I will ask for a show of hands of who's in favor of the plaza, and I'll call on somebody who's in favor. Then I'll ask for a show of hands, somebody who's utterly opposed to it, and I'll call on one of them. And then I'll ask for somebody who's we've heard some nice alternatives, and we'll call on them, and we'll keep doing that until we finish up, and I expect to shut down the meeting at 8 o'clock. I would ask you not to repeat what other people say. If somebody gets up and says, I love fountains, we've got to have a fountain, it's not going to really help much for three other people to get up and talk about fountains, because we're not really keeping count, and we're not taking votes tonight. We're trying to collect as much good information as we can. I'd like anybody who speaks to limit themselves to 2 minutes. We have a timer who will keep after you. And Joe, the clerk, has passed out little slips of paper. If you get up to speak, you turn that piece of paper and it'll have all the information he needs to put into the record. In reviewing the agenda, for those that don't have a copy of the agenda, Trustee Newhouse is going to give us a review of kind of how we started this and how we've gotten to tonight. Trustee Kaufman, who was charged with the responsibility of coming up with perhaps a little less expensive way to do it, is going to report on some of the ideas that he has had to do that. The EDC is going to make a presentation. I believe Brad Breaker is going to represent them. Brad, are you here? Okay. I just want to make sure you're here. And then each of the trustees are going to make a statement concerning their position. And then we'll have public comments, and I'll make a few closing remarks, and that'll be it. And the trustees and I will decide if there needs to be another meeting. With that in mind, I would call on Trustee Newhouse to bring us up to date.
Thank you, Your Honor. The purpose of this is to get everybody on the same page. I don't think anybody came here tonight to listen to us talk, so I'm going to go quickly and just hit the highlights. People have got other questions, call me at home, see me after the meeting. I'll be happy to provide more detail. But basically, the story of the plaza proposal is this. Concept grew out of about three things. The Comprehensive Plan Committee findings that Mortonites want retail, and activities downtown. Findings that there might be an appetite for some kind of a gathering spot or meeting spot downtown, an attractive place, and the recognition, and this was back around the time that the comprehensive plan was completed, the recognition that we were losing business occupants downtown, had few retail or eating places, and that downtown viability was at risk. This was first addressed by the Downtown Development Committee of the Economic Development Council. The committee was constituted with the agreement and support of the village board and included Trustee Herman and me as members, along with members of the Business District Commission and other Morton citizens who were interested. The idea developed with the help of our hometown design folks, volunteers, people in the community who participated in the process, some broader input from downtown merchants, and ultimately with the approval of the village board, the Economic Development Council in the village hired a company called Houseyall Levine to act as a consultant on the needs. There was an extensive process, or we sought to make it extensive anyway, for merchant and citizen participation. There were design sessions merchants participated in, subsequently circulated online. There was internet access, and people could participate and cast votes for what they wanted. It was a pumpkin festival site, other venues, and a town meeting at the Bertha Frank Center. And in the end, something like 1,200 Mortonites cast their votes and opinions on what they thought ought or ought not to be in the plaza, or whether they were in favor of it or not. With the land secured subsequently, the village board authorized the continued process with planning, a budget of $85,000 at the time. You may remember that. And the concept was that about half of it would be paid through the business district taxes, not property taxes, but business district taxes, and about half through fundraising. And that process was to be organized and conducted in concert with Morton Community Foundation and the veterans organizations. And we subsequently involved Farnsworth. Some of you may know who Farnsworth is, the design company. They did the pool. One of their employees, an outstanding designer, lives here in Morton and has been, part of this process. But most of us anticipated a proposal for construction of about $2 million. And you probably also recall that in February a proposal came in and it was closer to $2.5 million. Village board said we need to go back and take a look at cost reduction. And that's when the subcommittee was formed, of which Mr. Kaufman and Mr. Belsley were members. And they have subsequently completed their work. My understanding is, here's we are present day, here's where we are tonight. The committee has reduced the cost, and that committee's now been dissolved, but the Downtown Development Committee remains in place. But that cost has been reduced by about $500,000, which would bring us to something around or a little below $2 million. And we have also a proposal for an alternate site if need be. The reductions include a reduced requirement for fill material at the site, a modified water feature. The interactive feature has been taken out of the water feature, combining mechanical equipment and restrooms in a single building, and removing the staging area, sometimes called the band shell. It was never meant to be a band shell like the one in Idlewood, but the small staging area as part of that process. So as we stand now, we're talking about, if we were to proceed with it, we would be talking about a $1 million commitment from the village out of the business district funds. Again, not your property taxes. It's cash on hand, money in the bank. Contingent on 80% fundraising. That's standard practice. You say, we'll provide $1 million, but you have to hit the 80% mark before we open the cash register drawer. And a recommendation then by the completion of the work by the committee to come back with a recommended space. So what we're here tonight to understand, as the mayor said, position for or against, and I'm willing to listen to what everybody has to say, but ultimately we will have to make a decision and deserves a vote. So That's what we're looking at, approximately $2 million, half of it from the Business District Fund, half of it from fundraising. And we've got a good eye to believe that there would be that amount of volunteer fundraising. Certainly, we ought to be able to match. Well, it's an opinion. I'll keep my mouth shut. All right. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Thank you. I know this is tempting to come up with a lot of questions for Trustee Newhouse, and as he said, you can email him, you can call him, and he'll kind of keep us abreast of what you've said and the exchanges that you have.
Your Honor?
Yes.
I didn't mention it, but if any of my fellow trustees perceive it differently than me, I guess they should be entitled to be able to correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, tonight I think we're just trying to accumulate information. And with that in mind, I'd like to call on Trustee Kaufman to fill us in on what happened after that.
Okay. The mayor's asked me to speak on the Plaza Site 2 possibility. The location of this plaza is in front of the old police station on Plum Street and between Jefferson and Adams, and then up to the parking lot just on the other side of the old Wanless lawyer's office. So those 4 rows of parking behind the Main Street buildings would remain, so that block. The original thought was to close Plum Street and make that part of the plaza. I really felt at the time honor bound to disclose and to bring the board the possibility of this site. This site is much larger, and there is a definite possibility and potential additional cost savings because of the development expense. Now, when I talk about the cost savings, as Mr. Newhouse said, the Plaza Committee looked at the Main Street site and the plaza's original design. We felt there was $500,000 savings in that, and we really kept the integrity of the original design intact. We lowered a little bit of the one step and did a few things that saved a lot of construction cost. These are real numbers, that savings. The village engineer, Craig Laudermilk, and Bruce Brown with Farnsworth deal with these kind of numbers every day. They compared them to the market and what they're doing. So we felt confident to report back that there was $500,000 savings. Concerning Plaza 2, as we discussed this site with the village engineer, Craig Laudermilk, I felt we needed to sit back, look at the site, and think with an open mind before we start spending money on concept designs and bringing the committee together. And through that few weeks and that, there was no money spent on Plaza Site 2. But I can tell you, I've listened to the citizens' concerns about closing Plum Street and some other things. I've got some emails. And I would tell you that and recommend that if Site 2 was to be looked at and considered, I would leave Plum Street as it is. Now, as far as tonight, I'm looking forward to hearing the citizens' concerns, comments, and any ideas or possibilities you have on this plaza. And thank you all for coming. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. Breaker? Brad Breaker has volunteered, I think that's the word, to make a presentation on how the EDC sees the plaza.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening. I'm Brad Breaker. I work at J.J. Breaker & Sons, lifelong Mortonite, a local business owner and employer, and the current president of the board of the Morton Economic Development Council. I joined the Morton EDC in 2007 because I am passionate about Morton, because I believe that we need to plan for our future, because I want my children to be able to grow up in the Morton area and raise their families here. Today I am representing our board of directors and representing our Morton EDC investors and representing hundreds of citizens who have invested time and resources in the development of our village's comprehensive plan and downtown development plan. The Morton EDC's Downtown Development Committee, in partnership with our village trustees, has worked tirelessly over the last 2 years to carry out a comprehensive plan created by our citizens. An extensive downtown study identified key projects that would help us move forward in that goal, to make our downtown the vibrant heart of Morton again. Central to those projects, and most desired by our citizens, is the downtown plaza. Three goals were established for this project. First, it must have the elements that will bring people of all ages downtown regularly. Second, it must beautify a dilapidated area and reconnect the buildings of our downtown. And third, it must provide infrastructure needed to support many activities and events that take place in our downtown. 2 public surveys and 2 public meetings were held to gather citizen input for the Morton Downtown Plaza. Hundreds of comments were collected throughout the process. The final plan reflects that input. It is a project for our citizens and inspired by our citizens. It reflects a variety of perspectives and interests. It meets all of the established goals. It is a lifelong legacy project for the Village of Morton. Frank Douglas once said, "If there is no struggle, there is no progress." Well, this project has certainly spurred both struggle and debate. Some say we can't afford to build a downtown plaza, but we absolutely can. Morton has a designated fund for this type of project, our business district fund, along with private fundraising and grant dollars. This fund can support the construction and the maintenance of a downtown plaza without any property tax dollars. This fund will have enough to support the construction of a downtown plaza by the spring of 2015. We are so fortunate not to only have the design funding for the downtown plaza, but have a team of volunteers willing to raise over $1 million in private investment to make this project a reality for our village. Some say the downtown plaza really won't change anything in our downtown, and yet it already has. 2 of our newer businesses made a decision to locate in downtown because of the downtown plaza. Firehouse Pizza and Leaves and Beans chose to locate in our downtown in part because of the exciting new development plan. How many other new businesses will choose locations here because of our progress? Because of this project? How many new retail shops and restaurants will contribute property and sales tax, create new jobs, and offer a better quality of place for our citizens because of this project? Some say the downtown plaza should be scaled back to only include a small memorial. But a memorial alone will not draw citizens of all ages downtown regularly. It will not boost our downtown economy. And perhaps the most important it is, our Veterans Memorial Committee wants to have a plaza. They want to be honored in a bustling downtown center and a plaza with activities and events that are compelling to people of all ages in a setting that would be a gathering place for our citizens and visitors. Some say the state of Illinois and the U.S. economy could create future financial obligations or shortages detrimental to our village budget. We completely agree. That is why this project will be built using funds the village could not use for other purposes, but for the development of a downtown district, along with private investment and grants. And when the downtown plaza generates new business and residential developments and new property and sales tax, our village will be stronger financially and better able to withstand the financial storms of our state and nation. Some say nobody in Morton really wants the downtown plaza. That's probably perhaps the greatest misconception. The reality is that hundreds of votes and comments were collected about this project through 2 public surveys and 2 open meetings. And the vast majority of these comments were in support of the downtown plaza. Like most of you, Deb and I are putting dollars away for our retirement. We put a little in now and hopefully we'll have a bigger return in the future. Morton also needs to make investments for our future. We have an outstanding infrastructure because of our past investments. We have an outstanding police and fire department because of our past investments. It is time to make an investment in our downtown, in the heart of our village, for our citizens and inspired by our citizens, paid for by a designated fund and through private investment and grants paid for without any property tax dollars. John F. Kennedy once said, "Change is the law of life." And those who only look in the past or present are certainly to miss the future. I urge you, on behalf of the hundreds of Mortonites who made their voices clear during the development of our comprehensive plan, who made their voices clear during the development of our downtown plan and who made their voices clear during the development of this plaza plan. Don't miss the future. Make an investment for Morton's tomorrow. Please support the downtown plaza. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Breaker. Now I'm going to call on each of the trustees to give you their position on the plaza. Please bear in mind, and this applies to me too, that we're going to be discussing this and discussing what we hear tonight over the next few weeks. And our positions may change a bit as we try to evaluate what you've said to us. But I thought it was a good idea to make sure you knew where each of us stood on the project at this point. Since Trustee Newhouse was the first to speak, I'll let him be the first to comment.
I think all of you know that I have been engaged with the development of the project since its start and have championed it. So under the principle of full disclosure, that's my history with it. I would like to think that I am open-minded and an objective, and my intention is to hear what you have to say tonight, and I will cast my vote when the time comes. Thank you.
Through this whole process, I've learned a couple things. We are very fortunate to have our Director of Public Works, Craig Laudermilk, in Farnsworth. If the plaza goes ahead, there's definitely possibilities of saving money. Those two men have a handle on it. With their experience, it could be done in stages, and Mr. Laudermilk could manage it through the village. So I think we need to consider what it's going to cost, but I do believe that there could be additional savings with their talents.
Trustee Herman?
Thank you, Your Honor. The clock is ticking, so I'm going to be very, very brief also. Just to say that I just wanted to, I know the clock is ticking, so very briefly, I just wanted to say that I have some very fond memories of the vibrant downtown that we once had, and I appreciate the many citizens that had input into the comprehensive plan and made the recommendation that we take steps to revitalize our downtown, which really is the heart of our community. I too have some personal preferences for what I'd like to see. I definitely would like to see green space. I think our veterans deserve to have a memorial that's respectful and in a place of honor downtown. Right now, I'd say that I'm maybe leaning a little bit more toward a flexible phased-in plan, just simply because I'd like to see the plan be, the potential plaza have a multi-generational use. And so if we begin with just the basics of a gathering place, green space, and then we evaluate how it's being used, and then, you know, how could we attract other generations, and then also the fact that circumstances change in regard to finances, land that becomes available, etc. So I would like to see, I totally support the idea of having a gathering space of some type downtown. I'm very anxious to hear what everyone thinks. This should be the People's Plaza. But I want to, we will have the responsibility of, you know, keeping in mind the cost. Now, the maintenance, any potential staffing, that type of thing. So that's going to be in the back of our minds also. But I really thank you for coming tonight. I'm very eager to hear your comments. I really appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Trustee Hare?
Again, thank you all for being here tonight. Can you guys hear me back there? Okay, good. Okay, how about now? Okay. First thing, too, again, thank you guys all for coming out. I'd say one of the things that I said early on when I ran for election was that sometimes our biggest opportunities are our biggest challenges, and vice versa. Our biggest challenges are our biggest opportunities, and that's what I think we find ourselves here tonight. So with that, I know most of you, it's probably fair to say, already have their mind made up. and that is okay. But be respectful and make sure that those people that have a dissenting view of you can be heard and have their opinions brought out tonight. So that's one thing I did want to get out there for everybody, because there is going to be some back and forth with a project like this and the potential. So real quick, the dollars and cents for me, or the economics of this, I think that a lot of people have brought that up and talked about it. And the truth is, the money is there. This is not a Keynesian economic plan, which for everybody, it's not deficit spending. This is not the village or any committee trying to spend money that we do not have. That is not what this is about. The funds are there to do this project in a respectful and well done way. And that's one of the things that hopefully you guys will all come away with tonight, that those funds are there. With that, where do those funds come from? The business district tax. That is a sales tax that was set up for money that people that visit Morton, people that live here that are spending. So a little bit that comes in, and it generates about $350,000 a year. Okay, so that's where this money is coming from. And also, just in a comparison, our sales tax in town, I don't know if everyone pays attention to this when you go to a restaurant or you buy something, but our sales tax compared to other communities that are very close by is actually very moderate and much lower. And that's something that we can all agree on. And also, with that part being said, we are not talking about raising any taxes or asking anyone to contribute any more into this fund. So that's something that's important as well, because I am a fiscal conservative. I am not for spending and wasteful dollars. And when I say that, I think it's unfair, and it's probably the wrong point, to try to take the sins of the federal government and the state government and their wasteful spending and trying to project that onto us. Because in fact, that couldn't be it couldn't be further from the truth with this community. I think it's very well documented. It's public record that if you look at our budget, and you look at the spending that is done, it is incredibly conservative, and funds are set up. When you see these big dollars that go out, there's a misconception that this is all money that we don't have. But the fact is there are when you have a budget, there are funds within that budget that are set aside on a monthly basis to prepare for these big expenses. So, and the good news is this project is not coming out of the general fund at all, so you don't have to worry about that part of it. So the real question that I think that we need to be thinking about tonight, it's not really about the money, because the money is there. Whether you want to spend the money or not, that part can be okay. The real question is, will downtown be better off with or without the plaza? Okay. The next question would be, would our local businesses be better off with or without the plaza? Will the citizens of the town be better off with or without the plaza? And my opinion is we will be much better off with the plaza to all three of those questions. And that's where I'm at.
Thank you. Trustee Don?
Again, I want, like everybody else, want to thank everybody for coming out this evening. A lot of things have been said about financing and things like that, but I think the main thing I'm looking for in the plaza, and I was very encouraged by Trustee Newhouse's comment, the way things were pared down, the elimination of the water park and the band shell and getting the costs down, is I want to see green space and a veterans memorial. I think our veterans need to be honored. And just as a side note, next meeting we're going to revisit video gambling, and I think that's something with the state regulations that would help our veteran organizations raise money also. And other than that, I'm just anxious to hear what everybody has to say and evaluate it from there.
Thank you. Trustee Belsley?
Thank you. I don't know of anyone that is against the downtown plaza. Quite honestly, I've not heard from them, and I may be surprised with comments coming later tonight about that. But I think the real challenge has been is to try to just simply find a simple majority of those that can agree with the definition of public green space. So I think all of us have seen from here tonight, the attendance, the great turnout, we're all passionate, are very interested in this subject, and I only can conclude that we do want a public downtown plaza, public space on that. With that, in the days leading up to tonight's meeting, thinking about my comments, I'll try to be brief, but there's three things that really stood out. And one is it's essential for us and for the whole community to really have broad-based feedback and input from this. I think over the last year or so, there's been a lot written, newspaper articles, websites, newsletters, blogs, emails. But I think one of the most important things about tonight's meeting is we put a face to the subject. I mean, we're all gathered in this room, many of us on opposing sides or have differing opinions. But I think as we stand here, my hope, and I know the board's hope, is for us to hear those thoughts, those opinions, and put a name and a face to those thoughts. And these are people that are our neighbors. We've gone to school with, we attend church with, we see in the grocery store. And I think no matter what opposing viewpoints there are, I think it's important for us to humanize this subject a little more than what it maybe has been treated with in the past, and has created, if anything, in my opinion, more division or factions. And I really hope that by bringing us here together tonight like this, it can only keep the dialogue open and our minds open as well as this plan develops. Secondly, cost considerations. Obviously, a lot of that's already been shared. The concerns about the cost and how this project is funded. Obviously, there's the initial design and construction of the project, and something that I voiced earlier, and I hope to see a part of this, I think it's important, is the ongoing maintenance, operation, and replacement cost of whatever is going to be built as well. That's an important part of at least my consideration for when we talk about cost. I hope that's incorporated in our future discussions as well. And with that, I think it's essential for the board to come up with a budget. I think right now the dollar amounts we're talking about has been a budget that's been proposed to the board for our consideration. But I really think in order to provide future direction on this matter, the board needs to establish that budget and move forward from there. The other point with regard to cost is, yes, if we can find some medium or middle ground on this with regard to what improvements actually go in this space. We have one of the best park districts around. We have wonderful open green spaces all around the community, allowing for a multitude of activities. We got a band shelter under construction right now in Idlewood Park. I just would caution us to be careful about replicating or duplicating some of those uses that can take up prime real estate when we already have those amenities around us. And then I guess my last point on cost is just my own personal position is I'm not in favor of continuing to purchase more public property for this. Right now, the Main Street property that was acquired in 2011 is right around 0.62 acres. And if you were to combine that with the Washington Street portion between Main Street and First Street, you're right over a little over 3/4 of an acre. And for me, I think that's plenty to work with and for our plaza and to be able to find the right amount of improvements and use of that space in that area. So I don't have an appetite for buying up more public property that would essentially take away any future opportunities for taxes, sales taxes and property taxes, and jobs at those locations, and instead turn it into future cost with public space that we'd never get a direct source of revenue from in the future. And then my last concern is, or thought is that, as it's been shared, that we need to find compromise. Compromise needs to be, it needs to play a large role in this project. This project is very important for our community. As we've seen from the turnout this evening, there's strong cases that can be made for all opposing viewpoints. Somewhere in between is that sweet spot that I hope we can all find some common ground on. And my hope is that we can find that as we move forward on the development of this plaza space. And I'll leave it at that. With that, I look forward, along with the rest of the board, of the comments tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I have a show of hands of the number of people that would like to speak to this group? Help me out here. Gail, would you count the people in there? I can't see inside there. Oh, back up, back up. Old people count slowly. Okay. I hope we can fit them all in. We're going to, the chief of police is going to time you, and he is armed and dangerous. I just give you that as a hint. First, could I see a show of hands of those who would like to see the plaza built just as it has been proposed by the EDC with all the amenities? Who wants to speak to that? Gentleman there, somebody's standing up because that's, yes, you. I'm sorry, I don't know your name. Would you come forward and speak? Sure. But you're standing up, so I'm giving you a break to.
Do you have a ticket?
Yes, I do. I'm sorry. My name is John Fieser, and I live at 76 St. Mark's Circle here in Morton. I'm a local business owner, have a couple of businesses here in town that I've been part of running for the last 11 years. And one of the things that's important to me, and by the way, in the interest of full disclosure, I'm also on the board of the EDC. One of the reasons why this plaza is so important to me is we have a very young professional workforce, and we compete every day to get talent to be here in central Illinois versus going to Chicago, St. Louis, the coast. And I see this plaza, especially with some of the extra features for the younger generation, as being an excellent opportunity to have people want to live and work in Morton. You'd be surprised at how many people we have working for us, of the 25 employees who have chosen to live in Washington because of 5 Points, and Metamora because of certain reasons, and Dunlap, and I hear conversations all the time, and Morton doesn't come up a lot. And I really believe in the incredible hard work that's been done to plan for this project, and I think it's been great work by a lot of very dedicated, committed citizens. And from an economic viewpoint, I really think it's a huge benefit to the community to have a place where people can gather. I'll keep this real brief, but I look at how this community comes together every year for the Pumpkin Festival, and even last weekend with the barbecue. And this is a community that's a tight-knit group. And this plaza is just such a great way to bring people together on a regular basis. I think that's a huge benefit that's won't be measured until it's realized, but once that plaza is realized, I think we'll see it. We'll really see it. And I'll just end by saying thank you all for all the hard work you're putting into this, because I know it's been a long and somewhat arduous effort for all of you to figure out the finances and figure out the consultants and all that, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Could I see a show of hands of people who don't want any plaza at all? The lady in the back, right under the camera.
I'm Pat Wynn. I live at 26 Blackberry Lane here in Morton. Maybe I'm an anomaly, but among my relatives, my friends, my neighbors, and my acquaintance, there is no demand or clamor for a downtown plaza. And now is not the time to incur unneeded expenses and then the cost of maintaining it. The state government's broke, and they're threatening to bill us for pensions for the schools. They're threatening graduated income tax rates. The federal government's broke, even though they print money to cover up the deficits. And the school board, every 2 years, they've got a plan to raise our taxes. Sorry, but we're tapped out and taxed to death.
Now, this is a little trickier. Who would like to speak, who's got an idea? How about maybe something more in the middle, something that we can come up with? Rudy? I'll call on you next. Go ahead.
Okay. My name is Lee Bailey. I live at 319 Garnett Drive. I really didn't coalesce my thoughts until Mr. Belsley spoke, and it comes into focus for me. The Main Street property which has been purchased, I think, would be the ideal place to put a modest, some well-thought-out plaza. It would enhance Main Street and the activities that we have there. Site number 2 just doesn't look to me as the location to enhance the city's position, or the city's wares, if you will. You also have the firehouse, which has been sold. I don't know, it'd be interesting what's going to happen to it. That location for Site 2 could lend itself to some commercial income, and I really question the value of it. So in summary, I support somewhat of a plaza on Main Street, not on Site 2.
Rudy, I'll get to you on the next round. Could I have a show of hands of those who really want the plaza the way it was originally offered? Anybody, somebody who's having to stand in there. Man in the gray shirt. Yep. Yeah. Sorry, your time's up.
My name is Dennis Ewald. My wife Paul and I live at 1116 Parkside in Morton. We're 41-year residents of Morton. We moved here because of just the quality reputation that Morton had, from Opperly, Breaker, and Baum to Yordi, Witzig, and Zobrist, with Morton Buildings, Morton Metalcraft, Morton Welding in between, along with many others. Just the experience and the community is known for quality. I'm past president of the chamber, past president of the community foundation, current member of the library board. My wife and I have served the community in a variety of ways, and because we wanted to make it better. And the Park District has stepped up recently with the pool and the new pavilion with the Fine Arts Group. The library did an expansion, and all of our bodies have a great reputation. They've received many awards and accolades from all their peers in the city, our various, just our infrastructure and our fiscal responsibility. And again, we're not the federal government, we're not the state government. We do things right in Morton, and it's time to do something downtown. And as we do it, we ought to do it right. As I believe as Sam Hare was saying, the funds are there. I think the support from private foundations, private contributions will be there. And I think we can do an excellent, nice downtown, not a partial deal. And again, honor the veterans. I have something for the young children, the young adults. My two sons have, came through the school district and the park district, and time's up. Just let's do it, and let's do it right.
Now we're going to hear from somebody who doesn't want to spend a lot of money. Mr. Getz.
Oh, come on, Henry, we know you. Anyway, no shortage of talent there.
Yeah, okay. Henry Getz, I'm 93. I claim that I've lived in Morton more years than any man alive. You go with that, Rudy? Anybody want to challenge that? Anyway, my point is that this country was built on free enterprise. And that is a man who earns money should keep it, and it's his private property. And as far as helping the downtown, that's great. I'm all for that. But the downtown people should pay their own fare. As a taxpayer, this is strictly free enterprise talk. But I'm against the government, the legislators, continually doing good with taxpayer money. Let those earn it, keep it, and let those that benefit for a project pay for themselves. Thank you.
Rudy, I missed you last time. Would you like to speak? Yeah, you get to follow Mr. Getz.
Okay. My name is Rudy Husick. I've been in Morton since 1966. I was hired by Morton Buildings, and I worked 40 years for Morton Buildings. I reside at 156 Hampton Way here in Morton. I would like to point out the comment that I really like so far, that you're not going to use any cash for clunkers or stimulus money for this project. But on the other hand, when I came to town, there was the First National Bank over here, and the railroad tracks were still in the street on the interurban going to Peoria. And it is now a bicycle tract. It has a fancy name, I can't even remember it, but it's not very much used. And ever since I can remember, it doesn't matter whether it's in Morton or in Peoria or any other town, we got to revive the downtown. We got to revive the downtown. Okay, for what purpose? You figure out what the purpose is? I think this gentleman over here from the Iona group probably had the best idea of it all. He wants to attract talent with intellect to further his business. We don't need another pizza shop. Okay, now, I've been involved in a group youth exchange, and this lady over here reminded me, she took all the notes 25 years ago. I had between Germantown and Morton, and we, at that time, we had kids here from Germany in 1990, 91 for the Pumpkin Fest. We took a group of kids to Germany in 94. And again in 95, they came back for the Pumpkin Fest. And a lot of people still remember that. I have hours worth of videos of that stuff, but that's beside the point. Anyway, Back then, we were talking about a sister city between that town and Morton. And being that Morton, and this is one of the reasons I really liked about Morton when I came to town. I'm a German immigrant. My wife was born in Munich, Germany. Morton was known as Little Germany. And it's got a lot of German heritage here. And the only guy that's capitalizing on it is Gordon Honegger on his bank. So whatever you do with this plaza, I'll make it look like a German image. Okay. Thank you.
Vielen Dank, Rudy. Now could I see a show of hands of somebody who really, really wants to do this? Now she's really waving her hand.
Yeah. I'm new to this, and I live on Jefferson Street, 511 East Jefferson. I didn't get a white ticket. I got here about 6 o'clock. Sharon Thoma is my name, and Sharon Thoma, Thoma. And first of all, when you were talking at the very beginning, you said hundreds and hundreds of replies from all the things you put out, to get a feedback. Well, out of 16,600 some people in Morton, that's not a very good representation, in my opinion. How many hundreds? Do you know?
1,200.
1,200? That's not good. Especially, you should have been taking advantage of every opportunity to publicize this to every single person in Morton. 709 communicator came out, there should have been something in there about it. Every time something came out, there should have been something about this in it. And I just don't think it was publicized. I mean, not everybody has a computer or email or, some people still have landlines for phones. So that's the one point I wanted to make. I'm sort of nervous about this. The other thing is, I am not happy about Plaza 2, which would be between Jefferson and Washington, I believe.
Jefferson and Adams.
Adams, okay. It seems like a waste of money to tear out a beautiful parking lot that you have there and move any other buildings that you have and then put the parking lot over there and put the green over here. It makes no sense to me. The very first one, Plaza on Main Street, which Morton has Main Street, and that's where everybody wants to go. You go down Main Street. And it seems like that would be the ideal location. You can do all the stuff you want to do there. And, one reason that doesn't seem logical to me about Plaza 2 is because where are the people going to park that want to go shopping? People do not want to walk a long ways. People are generally lazy. They want to find the closest parking spot. Okay, so, you've got to have parking for downtown, not plazas. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me try again for somebody who's really in favor of the original. Gentleman on the white top.
Started. This is a great turnout tonight. Everybody should be proud of themselves for showing up and getting up here and talking. I really wasn't going to come tonight to talk about this. I do support it. I think there's been a lot of studies done. I think there's been plenty of promotion about it. I think if you had your eyes open, your ears open, you've been seeing things in the paper. There have been things on the television, on the committee meetings we have. So we've kind of learned about this. Although the reason I came tonight, there were a few letters in the paper. Anybody else see those this week? There were a couple letters in there, and I've just one of the points was that the mayor made, a professional and well-financed organization is mounting this campaign. But who is this? Where's your proof points for this? Who is this professional, well-organized campaign? I'd like to know. And I'd also like to know how much money actually has been spent on the properties and on the studies. How much money has been spent? I've got some estimates here, but I don't really know. I'm sure Mr. Newhouse can probably answer that later. And the new site, Plaza 2, I don't know who's donating that land. Why is that land is there a reason why that land's being donated? Is there a certain, I don't know who's got that, and why did that come to the light after all this other stuff came about, after the election? Sounded like it was being donated to is it being donated to the town, this site, this land, this extra land? That's kind of that was my impression from the meetings I heard on the television. And then also another comment in the paper, it sounds like that, people are gonna like, if we decide on this, it's gonna divide the town. Half of us not gonna like it, half of us not gonna like the other decision. Well, we just got through a presidential election, the whole country, half the country doesn't like who's in charge. We're already a divided country. We had a pretty close mayoral race. So if we're going to have a vote, we're going to have an up and down vote. We're going to have to abide by the vote. Okay? Let's do that. Let's not be, thank you very much. I'm going to get down.
Another rule is you cannot attack the mayor. I guess. I was way taller when I got this job. Before I go any further, I see a lot of guys from the Legion and the VFW, and I was thinking that they wanted to make some remarks. I want to make sure they get in. Steve, are you going to speak for them?
Yes, I am. I'm Steve Opperly. I represent the Veterans Memorial Committee. Our committee was formed 3 years ago to honor our fallen soldiers and represent them the way they should be represented. We were offered a piece of property right outside the Freedom Hall building here from the Park District, and that's where we started doing our design. That design out there was on a 100-foot square piece of property, and we started putting it together. And about a year later, as we started our committee, we started the fundraising, we were offered the opportunity to move downtown closer to the American Legion post, which we were extremely happy to have because it would be a lot easier for us to have our memorial services right next to the post. And everything was, we thought that was a great idea, and we were going to be part of a plaza. One of the problems we had out here, we would build it, it'd be very nice. There is a rotary wheel out there that my father, my brother, and I built over 35 years ago. Nobody uses it. It's beautiful, but it never gets used. We wanted this memorial to be used, so when we got the opportunity to get moved downtown to be part of the plaza, we were ecstatic in the fact that families would come and see who gave their lives for our community, for our country, and on the memorial, there's going to be all sorts of presidential sayings and stuff. It's a history lesson. And all these people would be able to come down and see it. And you can't do that if it's just sitting in a green area. People aren't going to just drive by it. We want kids to come up to it and learn. And that's why we were so happy to see that this was going to be part of the downtown plaza. Any questions for me?
Yeah, why can't a veteran get into, disabled veteran get into your place?
To stick to the topic, Your Honor.
I'm on the Veterans Memorial Committee, not the building.
We don't want to get off on, if we get Q&A, we're not going to get any more speakers in. But thank you. Now can we go, I think I'd like to hear another one who's really in favor of the plaza as it stands, lady in the brown.
I'm Teresa Blunier, and I'm at 1811 Greenfield Drive. I've lived here my whole life, except for 1 year when I lived in Chicago. I'm actually on the EDC, helping with fundraising, and the reason that I volunteered for it is because when I was a young mom and with little kids, I had McDonald's or the Dairy Queen. That's it. Maybe a park, but if the kids, if I didn't want them to get hurt on the slide, don't take them there. So I want some place that young families can take their kids, that they have some place in the downtown area that's going to drive young families downtown, because as a pharmaceutical rep, I drive through a lot of downtowns in Illinois that are boarded up. Because they're no longer being used. There's nothing to draw people downtown. They all go out to the shopping centers instead of coming into the downtown. We have to have something that's there for young families to bring them in. So we've got to make sure that whatever happens with the plaza, whether we modify it or not, we have to have something for the young families to bring them in. That's all I have.
Anyone who would consider themselves opposed who would like to speak? Right there. Second row. I'm pointing right at you. Yes, you. I'm going to do him next. You're both going to get it now for that.
Thanks for being nice and old guy. My name is Stu Kern. I live at 104 Lake Crest Drive, Morton, Illinois. And I've got 3 points, then I'm done. First point is I'm against the extravagant spending. And a lot of things that Randy said, even though he's out there to North 40, I agree to some and disagree to some. Now, the other thing, on North Morton Avenue, most of the businesses that are going in, that are creating money for Morton, are going north of the interstate. Now, at the north end at Lakeland Avenue, you go off the back of Walmart, and that's Highland. If you make a right-hand turn, you got a traffic control light and everything, but then within about a block, you have to merge to the middle. It's just as simple as that. Now, the other thing, McDonald's added a extra entrance to their restaurant. McDonald's is probably one of the more viable restaurants in town. But when you go to get out, you have to go down about a 30-degree angle to get out, and people will go down that angle and cut across 4 lanes of traffic. If something could be done there, is as you come out of McDonald's, it all has to go to the right.
All right. We're going to try to stick to just talking about the plaza tonight.
Okay, this is where you can save money and improve business, because most of the business is going past North Morton Avenue. I agree. I agree.
Thanks.
Somebody in the back row.
My name is Tom Slack, and I live at 317 Garnett here in Morton, and have been a resident in Morton for over 40 years. I read the article that this other gentleman mentioned that was in the paper the other day, and I agree with the assessment made by our mayor and by Trustee Herman, which basically said that we should start small and add to the plaza as the desires and finances of the village develop over the years. But I had a question about the article and some further statements in here that said we could, for example, start with a modified Veterans Memorial, not the $500,000 project the VFW and the American Legion are planning, but still something dignified, something we can all be proud of. My question is for the board, or for Larry and Dave and Steve, how much of that was private funding and how much was public funding of that original $500,000? It was my understanding when I first heard about the project that a good portion of that was going to be through private funding, through the sale of commemorative bricks, and through pledges by people in the community. And I think that we need to understand that before we look at, the issue here about the memorial.
Thank you. Let's try again for somebody who is very keen on having the plaza the way it's been originally described. That lady has selected you to speak next.
Thank you. My name is Tom Stanessa. I live in a 100-year-old house here in Morton that was built by the Roth family. I've lived here about 50 years. I've traveled a lot around the United States and around the world. And the different comments around here tonight about downtowns and what it can do, and the lady pharmaceutical rep there about towns, villages she's been through that are boarded up, I've seen that too. But I've seen so many towns and villages. I can't begin to tell you, thousands in my many years of traveling, most of my life, have got downtowns that draw people, and they're in the middle of town, and there's an excitement there in town from all the people. And you start with a grass area, that's just a grass area, and a couple of benches, a couple of trees. That's not enough to draw people in. We talk about all of the business that's coming to the north of the interstate. There's no question about that being such a hubbub. How about those 5 hotels that are up there that are fully booked a lot? I can tell you that, I know firsthand. Those are people that are traveling through, that are potential customers to look around town, to eat at a pizza place downtown, the Mexican restaurant, Dairy Queen, big lines there. And to me, this investment, as we're talking about the maximum approach now, is really an investment. And it isn't going to draw an immediate return, but you look at barbecue throwdown, the Muscle Man contest, you look at the car show, over 400 cars down there, Pumpkin Festival, it goes on, more events all the time, drawing people from outside this community. That sales tax on the restaurants are spending, it's gasoline tax down all of the gas stations, it's groceries to go over to Kroger or to Walmart to have their snacks that are off of the restaurant type of eating. It's bringing people in, and there's some excitement. If it's just a green field and 2 benches, that is not something with people checking out the town. Hey, what is this town? We're overnight here tonight, or we're coming to the area. Let's see what's in Morton. So that's where it is, and the money, as I heard first off, the funds already are there from the village standpoint, from this visitor's tax, whatever you call it, and the pledges are there for the private side of it, $800,000. The final point I make, my time's running out, is there is a possibility we can use volunteer equipment and volunteer people to pitch in and build that. Now, that doesn't mean all of us just show up there and start laying bricks and all the rest of it, but on an organized manner. There are construction companies here, and there's equipment here that could be volunteered, and it could be worked on an organized manner to even get the cost lower. And insurance will cover it. I've checked. There are insurance policies that cover barn raisings and all of that. Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Man in the back in the purple top. Is that purple?
That's fine. So state your name.
My name is Greg Albrecht. I live at 901 Queenwood. It's in the country, but it's in Morton. I have cornfields all around me, but I live in Morton. My wife and I and our 2 dogs moved here 6 years ago. I have 4 kids. They never went to school here. My wife works for Morton Buildings, and I'm a businessman in advertising and marketing. I'd like to make several points. There appears to be a lot of passion about this project. Would you agree? Whether it's good or whether it's for or against. That's good, because at least there's something to be directed to a good culmination. The other thing is, I hear a lot, and I'm not going to say any specifics about any board members. I know some, I don't know all. But the investments and the monies and the revenues, well, it all comes down to money. It comes down to money in your house. It comes down to money in this project. Supposedly, am I right or not, did we buy the Foreman Fleet property over here? Yes. Okay, so I'm not under the wrong impression, am I, that that's considered a good investment? Right? That's what I've heard. I think that's probably true. And we all know they're moving out north. I have a solution to the problem. Everybody wants varying things. Some want nothing, some want the whole load. I've heard a few $100,000, I've heard $2, $3, $4 million. I've heard that $30,000 a month, maybe $350,000 a year coming in from this particular tax, right? Why take 100% of that tax for the next 10 years? What else was going to come up in 10 years? I mean, $350,000 a year times 10 is $3.5 million, and there you go. You got a great downtown plaza. And we hope everybody's right, that it'd be great. But you're taking every dime of this percentage, this quarter of 1%. So what do we do then? Raise it to half of 1%? You see where I'm at. That's a negative scenario, I think. You're basically taking everything. I'll finish very shortly. My proposal is, let's get activity going on this investment that we have out here on Farm and Fleet and get that thing liquidated. Take your $2 or $3 million, you got the money for your downtown plaza. Thank you.
Show of hands are those who are 100% behind the entire plaza. Lady who just jumped up. That shows extra enthusiasm.
I have speaking points. My name is Susan Scott. I live at 420 East Jefferson Street, and I have to read off of my notes. Last April, our community held a local election, and from my perspective, many of our citizens used that vote as an opportunity to voice their displeasure at our state and federal government. And with that vote, they unwittingly unleashed the plague of gridlock and chaos to our own local government. How else do you explain the fact that a playground is now a polarizing and divisive issue? But we know that America did not become the greatest nation in the history of the world by hunkering down or being fiercely pragmatic. No, we know that it's through our unquenchable optimism and our recognition of the future's unlimited potential. I believe in Morton's unlimited potential. Do you? I'm going to ask you, the trustees, a favor. When the voices in this room quiet down later this week, and when the voices in your head finally quiet down, please take some time to sit in stillness and in your mind's eye walk around the plaza as it's fully visioned. Who do you see? What are they doing? What do you hear? What do you smell? You'll undoubtedly have a Dairy Queen in your hand. But immerse yourself in the plaza and then think about the contribution you made to make it happen. And when you go through that exercise, I know you're going to have a big grin on your face because you know in your soul that life's greatest joys come from saying yes to intense fears. I have examples. I'm not going to go through them. I have 2 minutes. But how many of life's joys have I sacrificed because I didn't have the courage to say yes when I could have? Or because I was afraid and confused and I said no? Thank you so much for your time tonight to dispel our fears and clarify things for us so we're not confused anymore about this. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your courage. I pray that you lead us.
Could I have a show of hands of those who are still opposed to the plaza? Man in the far back corner, white t-shirt. Glasses, hair that looks like mine. It's okay.
Just state your name and address.
My name is Richard Clark. I live at 11 Hickory Ridge Drive in Morton. We've been here about 16 years. And as one man said here just a few minutes ago, it's all about money. And the easiest thing in the world is to spend somebody else's money, tax money. That's all I have to say.
Show of hands of anyone who'd like to speak in favor of spending that tax money.
I will.
Phil?
I'm Phil Cool, and I'm a business person. I moved here about 45 years ago. Our family was young, and I came from Rockford. I worked in a downtown store in Rockford. And downtown Rockford was dying because all of the property was owned by out-of-town people, and nobody would invest in it. And I think Rockford still is probably pretty much dead. I grew up in a little bitty town in Iowa, 350 people. And it was a very vibrant community, much like what Morton is today. But do you know what? Morton today, or my hometown, is becoming a ghost town because it's evaporating. The business community went away, the young people went away, and there is no future for my hometown. I think we can look around our neighborhood pretty close. We can look at East Peoria. And East Peoria went through a significant transition a few years ago, 25 or whatever, because the business leaders stood up, Mayor Rainey and group, and said, we're going to do something about this town. We're not going to bury East Peoria. We're not going to let it become a slum. And they took some very bold steps that I'm sure everybody didn't agree with. But you know what? East Peoria today, I think we're all pretty proud of it, and we benefit from it, and we're watching it grow for business and for the young people. If you look at Washington, Washington spent that $20 million for that new 5 points. How many of you would have voted for that? Gone into debt, we would have talked all about it. And yet, I'll tell you what, the people stepped forward and they vested in it because they believed in the community and in the youth and the future of that community. And today, you go to Washington, they're already doing an expansion on that 5 points area because it's so much usage. But young people are moving there. Morton needs to have young people, and we need to have good schools. And I'll tell you what, having a good, healthy downtown that looks new and is exciting for people, I think is a pretty important thing for all of us, and for our kids and for our grandkids. So thank you. I have to go to a concert. There's a free concert tonight out at the park. One quick comment on the pavilion. You talk about raising money. We raised $500,000 for the pavilion. How many of you guys spent money on that? How many of your tax dollars went into it? There's no tax dollars in that. That got built because people wanted it. And we didn't build it cheap. We built it quality because that's what Morton stands for. And that's what I hope we do with the downtown.
How many people would still like to talk? Reno?
I'm really not calling anybody. This is my notes. I have become paperless. The first thing I want to say is my name is Reno Trifanoff. My parents and I moved here 50 years ago this month. And, Morton has been a pretty good town. I've lived here on and off for some of those 50 years, not all of them. Excuse me. But I have a couple questions for everyone. And first thing I want to say is I'm not opposed to the plaza. I'm not in favor of the plaza as it is presented. I have some questions for you that I don't necessarily need answers to. But I bet if I asked all of you, how many of you like puppies? I bet every one of you will raise your hand. Okay, now I have to admit I'm stealing this line from a good friend of mine. I've got to give credit where credit's due. But anyway, everybody's going to say, I love puppies. Now, if I say, how many of you want one of my puppies? All of a sudden, oh. Okay, so the question is, do you like a plaza? Does the idea of a plaza appeal? Well, of course it does. The question I have, though, is if that puppy I have for you is going to cost you $1,000, how many of you want puppies? My guess is the number of hands would go down by quite a bit. Okay, that's just one question. The next question I have is for the board, and that is, you guys keep talking about the business district tax as if it's money that we don't pay. Somebody else is paying that. And the reality is most of the money that's spent in Morton is by Mortonites. A few hundred people in hotels spend some of it, but 17,000 people in Morton spend money here in town, at Walmart, at places, restaurants, all those places downtown. So don't try to fool us into thinking that money isn't ours. That money should be going to fix infrastructure downtown. It's in the charter where you guys said you wanted to collect that money. Okay. The other thing is this talk about this fancy plaza being the great thing. Okay, what you guys are talking about is a very urban style plaza, something that would be fitting in Chicago or St. Louis. Okay. Most people think of small towns as small towns. We need a feature that fits our persona. Okay, and I think that's where most people get upset, is that they feel like something is being crammed down their throats that isn't fitting for a town like Morton. People are getting spun up by the hoopla. It's like a Christmas present. They're all excited about the plaza. But what happens when the money is spent and all of a sudden it costs more than it should, which it will, you know it will, and then the maintenance starts coming in. It's going to cost probably $5 or $10 grand a month to maintain this place. You got bathrooms, you got bushes, all those sorts of things. The other thing is this poor planning. The amount of times that things have changed. Same thing with the fire station. You know, you had all these different plans that went back and forth, and that would all be solved by planning. You guys think the taxes here in Morton are cheap compared to other places in the area, and that's true. But if you read the Peoria Journal-Star, you will find what I've been saying for years, and that is property taxes and taxes in general in Morton are double what they are in most places in the country. So think about that when you guys want to spend more money. The last thing I want to say is if you guys have all this millions of dollars in money burning holes in your pocket, why don't you think about maybe giving some of it back to the people who paid it to you in the first place? Thank you.
Mr. Welch?
My name is Jim Welsh, lived here 55 years, and my age is not quite up to Henry's. But I'm a few years short, Henry. I've been I don't know whether my wife calls it multitasking or what, but I have had 10 or 15 years of smaller real estate development here in Morton. The most significant, I guess, would be the corner of Queenwood and South Main. Casey's was nice enough to buy a lot, put up a nice building. Queenwood Car Wash was put up by some airline pilots. Then Rob Buckman decided he put up a Morton building, and then we put an office building right in behind it. So there's 4 commercial buildings down there, and the comment was made that I got the question is, should the village of Morton be in the real estate buying and selling and renting and taking care of it? I heard a comment about the public facilities could handle this new plaza without any extra people, or I think I heard that. I wonder if that really is true after you get phase 2 all done. It's questionable, I guess. There's a lot of man-hours goes into commercial buildings maintenance that don't often meet the eye. I think a plaza is great. I think the Plaza number 1 is great. It's done a heck of a good job. I question whether we need much more plaza than just number 1. The comment is being made, we're going to bring kids and a lot of more people downtown. I got one story, shows how old I am. A long time ago, 30 or 40 years ago, most of you older fellas have traveled to Chicago a lot, and up at Bolingbrook, which is right between Joliet, downtown Chicago, a booming residential area. It's been that way for 50 years. Well, some people come along, some builders, investors, and I don't know where the money come from, and they put this humongous building up in Bolingbrook. That thing, when you looked at it from the interstate, it looked like the Capitol building in Washington, a smaller version. The idea was we're going to have a big entertainment center in the middle of that building with a huge Ferris wheel. We're going to draw families in there. We're going to draw, the kids will be after mom to bring her in there to do shopping. Well, I stopped there and my wife 3 times. The first time...
You're going to have to wrap it up here pretty quick.
The first time, there was hardly anybody shopping. The whole thing, the whole perimeter was shopping. The second time we stopped there was near Christmas. No more people there. You go down to the Michigan Avenue or whatever it is, and that's packed full of people, but not out there. The third time we went up there, and this is over a span of 15 years, they had tore it down. So I wonder how many people, extra people, we're going to bring in to a big plaza. I just want to make, my point is, I think it ought to be private enterprise does this as opposed to the city. Number 2, yeah, okay.
Thank you, sir. Craig.
I'm Craig Barley. I live at 519 Stoneway Drive, and I'm firmly in favor of having a plaza in Morton. I was the co-chair on the last 2 updates of the comprehensive plan, and as output of the second plan, it called for development of a vibrant and economic commercial center in downtown. And I really believe that the plaza would do what a lot of other people have already talked about tonight in terms of contributing to that vibrancy of our community. But I also really believe that right now, if we said, should we have the $3 million plaza that has been talked about, or should we have no plaza at all, and took an up and down vote on that, we would alienate and really split the community. We've lived here since 1979. And it's only recently that I've heard about and read in the paper about factions and people on the other side. And I guess I really believe that all the people in the room really want what they personally believe is best for Morton. So I'd like not to think about factions and the other side. I'd like to look for ways to compromise on this. I really think that not too many people have said we don't need any plaza at all. It's all a matter of scope and size and cost. So I'd like to see us start on developing a downtown plaza with a few of the basic amenities. I think if you're going to have a public space like that, the first thing you need are public washrooms. We need a place to sit. I don't think we need to duplicate the performance stage A year ago, we didn't have any in town. Now we've got a really nice one that's being built. I don't think we need a formal performance area in the downtown plaza. So I'd be interested in starting it, building it, using it, see how people use it. If it turns out that every day there are a couple of guitar players at one corner of it, and it becomes obvious that that's how people are going to use the plaza, then we could accommodate some sort of performance area that way. One thing that I think I can offer is, as a new suggestion, is the use of the Community Foundation to help in the funding of this. I firmly believe no property tax dollars should be used for this. We ought to build it through downtown tax and gifts through the Community Foundation, possibly grants. We already have a fund started at the foundation, and without any fanfare or publicity, we've already collected over $3,600 in that fund for use on a plaza. And I'd recommend that we establish an endowment fund. At the same time, we're collecting grant monies and gifts and donations for the construction of the plaza. We could also endow a fund for the permanent maintenance and care of the plaza, so that at the time we're collecting funds here, we could assure that the plaza, as it's built and grows and develops, would be maintained in perpetuity.
Gentleman in the back, up against the door.
Hi, my name's Zach Johnson. I'm an ISU student who grew up in Morton my whole life. As someone who did grow up in Morton, one thing I can tell you is that a lot of people complain about the lack of things to do in this town. And I think with this plaza, not only would it mean more daily activities, but it would mean lots of events coming in, lots of business. It's all been talked about already. And along with that, not many people I talk to who are going to school right now say they want to come back to Morton. I don't hear anyone ever say, maybe I'm just making the wrong friends here, but no one, me personally, I don't want to come here after college, honestly. But if something like the plaza happens, you know, I see the Idlewood pavilion, and that makes me really happy. And the only two things I hear as far as opposing are the money issues, which the money is not really the issue, and that's been talked about over and over. And we don't need it, and we don't need a lot of things. So, but is this going to enhance our living experience? I think very much so. And we were just voted one of the top towns for families to live in, and I think we should continue to act like that. Thank you.
Steve?
I'm Steve Nickel. I live at 108 East Shore Drive in Morton here. Henry Getz and I have something in common. We've probably always lived in Morton our whole entire life. I hear that we're going to use the Business Commission funding for this. I've just recently been appointed to that commission. Haven't been to my first meeting, but I understand there's about $300,000 to be spent. So where do we come up with $2 million? And if we take it out of that fund, our charge has been to help local businesses to refurbish their facades and improve their business. If we use all this money for one single project for the next 6 years, what do we tell our local businesses, hundreds of local businesses that could use that money to improve their business to bring people into town? That's my question for the board. What do we tell them? My other question, or my other statement would be, hey, I'm not opposed to the plaza either, but it's kind of like the swimming pool. It's only going to get used about 3 months out of the year. How is that going to draw people downtown in the wintertime? There's nobody coming downtown to sit in the plaza in November, December, January. So we need that's great for the summer, but we still need something else to draw people downtown, and it's not green. Thank you.
I don't have a slip of paper. Hi. Susie Camacho. I live at 1247 Autumn Ridge Court. And I had not planned to speak tonight, but as I hear some of the different individuals speaking, I have to just give a little bit of insight about what happened today to me. I help co-manage Upscale Resale, which is a not-for-profit right down in the heart of downtown, probably one of the biggest retail businesses in Morton as far as a private entity. And we do pay sales tax, and we do bring in a lot of people from outside the area. So I feel like I have something to say. Today I stepped out of our back door and to eat a little lunch out on a mini plaza that is right there where that parking lot is in back of Upscale Resale, Binkley Jeweler. And I couldn't help but reflect on how tacky and unkept and ugly it was. There's a water fountain, there's a wastebasket, there's a bench. It has some bushes that have not been trimmed, they have not been taken care of. Apparently we have a lot of money here, to spend on a plaza, and I would like to see a nice plaza in the first area that the village purchased. But as far as the maintenance issue of it, not only putting aside money for that, but also the commitment. The Park District does a great job of taking care of the parks. But a plaza, from my understanding, and I've seen a few plazas too, is only an asset if it is a beautiful, well-kept area of green space where people really want to be. So I'm disappointed that I can't go out in a little triangle even and eat a sandwich and not enjoy some beauty in my back door. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you. Who else? Gail?
Don't start yet, right? Those of you that know me, 2 minutes is pretty short. I'm Gail Westbrook. I live at 119 East Idlewood. I'm a business owner downtown, actually. I don't know if you'd call it downtown. I'm on 1st Street. We own the Morton Roller Rink. Yay, we're still in business. One of the oldest businesses, actually, that stayed in that area, 62 years, I believe. We also have a business located there. It's called Base. So I have a vested interest in the Did it go off? In the plaza, because it's right across the street from us. I think it's a great idea. I think the plaza is. I think just like with our business, with most of you, Mr. Opperly, you know how it is when you first start a business. We have to be careful. Times are tight. Our business, when we started, we had to slowly do things in increments. We're redoing the front, and thank you for those that have complimented us on that. We did that because we could afford it. And I'm a firm believer that if you can't afford it, then we shouldn't do it. And I do see that we do have the money, and that's great. But why spend it? Why do we have to spend it? I have a savings account. I've taught our children to keep a savings account. I just would want wisdom to be used to all of you. That I'm thinking of my children. I have all 2 of our 3 children live in Morton. I'm sorry, Zach. Mine chose to come back. The reason they came back is because of our educational system. That's the truth. It's not a plaza. It's because we have a great educational system. And I want to continue that. I want to continue that growth. And I prayerfully have just really prayed about this whole meeting and that we would continue to not be divided. And I know somebody said that, and I don't want to be divided. I love Morton. I'm from East Peoria. Yay, Raiders. And Rob and I lived in Wisconsin, and we lived in Port Washington. Very small town, did a lot of work on that town. We just went back there actually last year. And their downtown is dead, and it's sad. So I don't want that for Morton. I don't want it for my business. I don't want it for the other businesses that are in Morton. So I just pray that you guys think wisely of spending the money that we work so hard for, and that you think of us. And thank you very much. And I'm excited to have a plaza, and especially the veterans. I'm excited for that.
Mike?
I did not pay admission or get a ticket.
State your name and address, and you're all right.
Mike Bush, I live at 565 Minnesota. You know, it might be acceptable to some people that the village of Morton is divided because the country's divided. It's not acceptable to me. I don't think it's acceptable to any of you people. You know, in answer to all three of Mr. Hare's questions, but, you know, my personal opinion, the answer to all three is yes, yes, and yes. So the question becomes, how do you try to make everybody happy? Perhaps your goal shouldn't be to make everybody happy. It should be to visit an equal amount of misery on all factions. I'm afraid that's where we're at, you know. And we're not going to get through this and do it if we don't admit what the problem and quit throwing the baloney back and forth. You know, the village of Morton has money. We're not overtaxed. On the other hand, the election was not about Barack Obama and Pat Quinn. And it wasn't about Steve Newhouse. Anybody that was voting on Steve's qualifications, dedication to the city, would have voted for him, should have won by 100%. What the election was about was the perceived, and note I said perceived, undue influence of the EDC and the Chamber of Commerce. You guys have to fix that. You know, it did not take Eisenhower 3 years to plan D-Day and the invasion of Europe. Could we move on? I mean, we don't need any more committees. We don't need any more consultants. You got Mr. Kaufman on the board. You got Mr. Opperly familiar with the veterans. Move on. Let's do something, even if it's wrong. You know, lead, follow, or get out of the way. And I've had discussions with Mr. Newhouse, and I don't think I'm talking out of school, but I suggested Morton say we'll spend $1 million on this plaza, which would be $400,000 for the land, which is my understanding is approximately what was spent in $600 new money. He's suggesting a cap of $1 million new money thrown in the land. You know, I'm not going to commit suicide or engage in self-flagellation if you spend an extra $400,000, but you have to come up with a cap. The first decision you should have made, and to be perfectly honest, that's the reason the community's divided. No one has ever sat here and said, here's exactly how much a village is willing to spend, and you haven't made that decision yet. How can you plan anything without knowing what you're going to spend? Let's do it. You know, move on, get the plaza built. Both sides are going to have to compromise. You know, Steve Opperly has some great ideas as to how we accomplish that. You don't need to go back to Farnsworth and the EDC and all this crap. Build the damn plaza.
Having apparently been elected without any qualifications, I'm a little reluctant to continue. I saw you laughing over there, Steve.
Check's in the mail, Mike.
Would anyone else like to follow that speech? you raising your hand? Good, got it.
Thing doesn't like me. Good evening. My name is Aaron Miller, and I'm the current board president for the Chamber of Commerce. Our chamber represents over 350 businesses with over 12,000 employees. You know, I've got this whole big speech here, but in a way, I agree with Michael Bush. I said I have this big speech here that I prepared. It talks about the money being there, that it's not tax dollars, but in a way, I got to agree with Michael Bush. Set a budget. Let's get the plaza built. We will fundraise the rest of the money. You know, there's a site, a Facebook site that I don't go on too often because it raises my blood pressure a little bit. But I do like the pictures that they put on of downtown Morton. I mean, who doesn't like history? Who doesn't like to reminisce? And I was thinking this afternoon, my brother and I bought our first bikes at Western Auto right on Main Street, and we used to ride them through the tunnels. And do you know there's like 20 degrees difference on a hot sunny day in those tunnels? It was great. My parents used to shop at Conover's, Morton Village Pharmacy. When I graduated from Blessed Sacrament, I got my first suit at Witzig's. I looked pretty dapper. The library was downtown. The movie theater was downtown. Morton Federal Savings and Loan. My dad and I went in there, and I opened up my first savings account with a crisp $5 bill, and every time I went in there, they'd stamp that, and they'd write down, and I'd go out wondering, what can I do with all this money? All $15. You know, Miller's Bakery. Who doesn't remember Miller's Bakery? The smell of the bread and those fresh baked glazed donuts just melted in your mouth. And of course, then there was Ben Franklin's. You go in the right side, you spend some time. The little cashier, okay, she wasn't real nice to us, but we went out on the left. The Beeline grocery store. You know, I used to go in there and try to smooth my girlfriend's mom and try to get her on my side. Luckily, it didn't work because my wife that I'm married to now of 37 years is a totally different person. But they all have one thing in common, all those places. They are no longer here. I would suggest that we do something to revitalize the downtown, to bring people down, to support the businesses. And I think that thing is the plaza. Thank you.
We're heading toward the end here, but we can take maybe one or two more. Young man by the door.
Adam Strenz, 185 J Avenue in Morton. I in no way planned on talking when I came here tonight, but I just wanted to hit on a few things that came to mind. The first one is, and the most important one is, I keep hearing people say young people don't want to come to town, and if we had a plaza, it'd get them here. I teach in Peoria. That's my job. I do that for a living. And as Peoria's education system has fallen apart, a lot of people have come to me and said, hey, you know, I hear you live in Morton. Is Morton a good place to live? Okay, I moved to Morton when I was in high school. I left to go to college. I came back. I live here now. And basically, whenever I talk with those families, I've talked all of them into moving to Morton because of the education program they have, the convenience of the fact that we're close to anything. You jump on the highway, it's 15 minutes to anywhere. Never does a plaza come into the mind, okay? I support the plaza. I didn't at the beginning. I support it now. I think the veterans have come forward with a great idea. I just don't think that city money should be spent for that. I think that the money has been put into this sales tax, this business district, to support our businesses, and I think the money should be used to support our businesses in ways that will help them significantly, not through a plaza that we say, hey, this will support you. People don't go down to the riverfront because they have a water feature all the time. Every time I'm down there, there's nobody playing in it. So I don't think that just sticking a water feature downtown, everybody's going to be like, yay, let's go play in the water. Okay? It's not the way to do it. The way to have a thriving downtown is to get good businesses there that we support and we go shop at all the time, and that's the way to do it. Thank you.
Katie?
My name is Katie Vandenberg, and I am a downtown business owner. I live at 139 North Maple. Businesses will not come to Morton if we do not have an attractive downtown. I'm located at Eli's Coffee Shop, and I'm a little bit a ways from the downtown, but I fully support the plaza. We just lost a pillar of my generation. Jed and Vicki Toffer moved to Minnesota. We have nobody like all of you at our generation that will help keep our town sustained. I'm not sure where they're going to come from. We have Bill Opperly, who's following in his father's footsteps. Our downtown is insurance agencies, it's lawyers. Who's coming here to shop? We will support our downtown if we have a plaza and people come here to shop. How much of our sales tax goes to other funds for our town besides the 0.25%? Do you know? That goes to other funds to help our downtown. Is there anything else? I mean, do we have another fund besides the 0.25% that helps support our downtown?
It's distributed by the state.
Okay. So if somebody comes and spends money in Morton, 1% goes to funding something like the plaza and business development. The rest of it actually helps our businesses. People will come and spend more money here for us and help keep our town vibrant. People are going to start moving away, like Jed and Vicki Toffer, like so many other people in our community if we don't do something like this. Yeah, that's all I have. Thank you.
Chris?
Mr. President and Board of Trustees, thank you for letting me speak tonight. I wasn't going to speak tonight, but when...
Name and address.
Oh, okay, sorry. Christopher Ferris, 309 North Illinois Avenue.
Thank you.
Okay, I wasn't going to speak tonight, but Mr. Johnson, the ISU student, who's still here, he spoke earlier, and he made me think about myself when I was at ISU. I'm thinking I'm never going back to that town. I'm going to go to school, I'm going to get my degree, and I'm going to find a job and something exciting, more exciting. Well, more exciting for me turned out to be Peoria. And after trying to make it for a few years in a nice pocket neighborhood, older houses, very classical 1920s, 1930s architecture, and calling the cops every day about the drug deals going down in front of me, things like that. I ended up getting engaged, and a year before I was married, I thought, I've got to raise a family somewhere other than this place. And I moved back to Morton. I bought my parents' house, which is right across from the high school, and it's a perfect location for going to school. And that's why my parents bought in 1975. They wanted me to be able to walk to all my schools, and years later, I didn't understand this at the time, but I knew at the time they wanted me to go to schools in Morton. I wasn't quite sure why they were any different from East Peoria, but it turned out that it was a great education system, which other people have echoed, but something they told me later when I was able to understand is that it was for the low taxes. We moved here because taxes were cheaper than in East Peoria, and it was a great place to go to school for you. And Shire's Dairy was close, and we always drove there from East Peoria. So anyway, that is why my parents moved to East Peoria, or from East Peoria to Morton, and why I moved back to Morton. And I don't think it has anything to do with grand green spaces, even though I love those, and I miss the mini park, and maybe we could have something like that again. Thank you.
Conrad.
I am Chef Conrad, who used to own the pepper mill. I started in Northern Europe, Denmark, on my profession, and that was 1949. And I wound up in the southern part of Europe and then came to this country. But I came through many small towns like Morton. And they, when I think back, looked at that time kind of sad. And since I have been back since 1957, about almost every 2-3 years, and visited the town where I started, the same size as Morton. And that town, I almost got lost in it because they made it so beautiful. And so the other towns in southern Germany. So I'm talking about the Morton Plaza. And when, like Chamber said, we, I lost it. Like Witzig, when Witzig and all these small businesses were here. It was a wonderful town. And if we can change that to this day with the plaza, that'll be wonderful. I think Morton will bloom after that. Thank you.
Well, we have 2 minutes left, and I had hoped to take those 2 minutes myself. You've heard from a lot of people here. You've heard from all the trustees. You'll hear more from the trustees as meetings go forward. I have never thought the plaza was a bad idea, and I've never said we didn't have the money. We actually have the money to do this. My problem has always been I've just been opposed to any unnecessary expenses when you look at what's going on around us. The state is desperately looking for ways to hand off their retirement debt. The federal government's spending money faster than they could print it. I want to assure you that the trustees and I are going to work together to come up with an approach that everyone, to at least some extent, can embrace. If I had the authority as mayor, and the trustees have assured me that I don't, I would have started with a Veterans Memorial. I'd have scaled it back from the $500,000 that I saw, but I would have proposed something that properly honored our fallen and something we could be proud of. I checked with the county, Tazewell County, because they have a very nice Veterans Memorial next to the courthouse, and Steve Saul told me that they spent about $120,000 on it. It's black granite. It's beautiful. He also told me, Ken Opperly, are you still here? He said Opperly volunteered and put in the foundations for nothing. Thanks a lot. Steve, if that gives you any ideas. I just would think that other amenities could be added as we went along. I think Ginger said it very well, that as we go along, we check our finances, we check our appetite for spending, and we see how things are going. But as I said, the board is going to discuss this in upcoming meetings. And as a famous politician once said, if when we're done, everybody's mad, we'll know we did the right thing. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Ron.
Second. All in favor? Thanks for coming.